Good morning. Good morning. And I'm so excited and honored. I'm very grateful for you to agree to do this interview. One of my favorite things about the massage industry is no matter how big I think a name is, like teacher wise or what an impact someone has made on the industry, they're still like, yeah, I'll totally do an interview with you, and I love that about the massage field.
Pretty good people. Well.
Yeah. Always wanting to help people out, right? So welcome, Sandy Fritz. Would you mind doing an introduction? So maybe someone who hasn't heard of you will.
I've been a massage therapist for over 40 years. You may hear my parakeet chirping in the background. So, and the cat may walk on the screen, but that's what we get with Zoom, right?
Got a dog right here. So hopefully no one knocks on the door.
I've owned a massage therapy school for almost 36 years.
Wow.
And in a small, it's growing now, but in a rural part of Michigan. I have had a very lucrative, in a sense that I've always been busy, varied career, and the way it was back in the day is not the same as it is now for new graduates. And so, even though there were ways that, I gathered clients and that sort of thing back in 1979, that's not the same as it is now. But I have had the opportunity to see over that 40-ish time span a real evolution of massage therapy. 6 years ago, my family and I decided to buy a massage therapy franchise. It is built out actually in the school building. So that has been a journey, and I can speak. One of the reasons why we did it in conjunction with the school was to be able to speak truly about the franchise system. There's so much misinformation about that. And then, what it's like to be an actual employee as well as an employer in that market. And then I am a textbook author. I have been writing entry-level textbooks for 24 years now. And that keeps me up to date, because each time there's a revision, I have to take a look at what's going on. And it always tickles me about how much has changed and how much hasn't over that whole time frame. And we've got some real issues we need to look at as a massage community, primarily about entry-level education and standardized curriculum to a certain extent, and standardized terminology. We need to get over some of this unique branding stuff, because we can't communicate with other professionals or even the general public when we have all these unique names for everything. Yeah.
Can you give an example of what these unique names are?
Oh, well, yeah. One of and it goes into the idea of appropriation too, which is naming something or taking just pieces of some sort of cultural discipline and not really honoring the whole idea around the full discipline, but just taking pieces of it. So an example of that we've done in the United States is it's shiatsu and Thai type approaches. And those are both broad healthcare systems. And the way they are taught here in the United States usually is how to adapt to working on a mat, or how to adapt working over clothing. And that is not Thai massage. That is working over clothing on a mat or something. And so when I talk to somebody in another healthcare system, a PT or whatever, and I say, oh, Thai massage, they have no clue what I am talking about. Same with deep tissue. Swedish is an old term. The term Swedish massage is used inappropriately almost always. So it's that, and we can come back and chat on that in a little bit. But in my textbooks, I have used more encompassing language that describes what we do. And the massage therapy community has tried to standardize terminology, and then it hasn't been adopted. So the first one was the Massage Therapy Body of Knowledge, and then the next one was Entry-Level Analysis Project. The Entry-Level Analysis Project did a good job. So for example, in the Swedish massage system, they will use a term effleurage, but effleurage only applies if you're talking about a Swedish massage or a classical massage system. In the broader scope is gliding. And so we need to switch over. And then the other thing that is problematic is somebody will put, there's A, B, C, and D, and then they'll do DCAB and call it something totally different when it's just, a rearranging of massage methods, and they'll come up with some crazy name for it, and that's all confusing. One of the things that people like to talk to me about is that I've worked with professional athletes for years and years and years, and so has my son Luke. And I've had school programs with professional athletic teams, and worked with individual athletes, hundreds of them, not just one or two. Worked with athletes through their entire career. In fact, after this call, I will be seeing a retired football player that I started seeing when he was a rookie.
Wow.
So it's been over 20 years that I have worked with this particular athlete and seen them go from, right out of college and the draft and all that went on with that through, injuries, moving from a rookie where you think you're really good, but you're not really when you get with all the pros, and then learning all of that, then peaking and being a star, and then declining because you do. That's just what happens. And then finally retirement. And then how do you live with all the bumps and bangs and bruises and injuries and stuff that you've had for the rest of your life? So that's a very interesting perspective that I've got. So I'm kind of fun to talk to.
Yeah, a lot of experience. You're not just working with athletes, because that's what this interview is about, the sports massage aspect of it, but you're also a teacher. When did Michigan become licensed, by the way?
Well, in 1990, actually, the license was written at the end of the 1990s, but it really wasn't implemented until the mid 2000s.
Yeah, because I think that's Illinois as well. I think we hit mid 2000s.
Followed along with that. So
your school is before licensure. Is my math right on that?
Yeah.
A good 20 years or something.
The school started in 1983.
Yeah.
So it's been, and it's undergone a lot of shifts and changes through the years as well. There are a lot of external influences within the massage community that will determine what a career pathway will look like, and how the graduates or the students that are going to be listening to this, how their career is going to unfold. And, it's really good to talk to people with gray hair. That's really good. People that have been around a long time. I'm talking to the students right now, but you got to be careful, because just because it worked for the way we did it, or we talked about the way we did it, it doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to be for you. It has changed. One of the things when I'm doing something like this that students will ask is, well, how did you get connected with a pro sport team? How did that happen? Well, I mean, I can tell that story on how that happened. That's probably not the way it's going to happen for your students that are listening to this now. So you gotta really, you want to listen to the wisdom, and you want to, learn from somebody's mistakes and all that kind of stuff, but you can't necessarily translate the experiences of the past into what's happening into the future. I think one of the people will ask, well, how did you get into it? I said, well, I had already been doing massage for about 10 years. The school was already going, and the Detroit Lions wanted to have some massage. They were actually kind of a little ahead of the game. They wanted to have some massage therapists come in for training camp, and they reached out to the various schools, and we responded. And that was a long time ago. That was also almost 20 years. Well, it was 20 years ago, probably 21 years ago now. And there were, they wanted everybody to volunteer and all that kind of stuff. And we were only supposed to go twice to a training camp where they've got 100 players in there and all of that. And, just do
2 people. You said 2 people for 100 players.
No, I would take the school
You take the whole school.
students, and we'd have about 20 students there. And they didn't know what they were doing, but the players didn't know what they were supposed to get either. It worked out all right. But the people that were at the top rung right then, the coach and the trainers, and they really liked what they saw, and the players gave good feedback. So that program evolved with the school over years, and 14 years. And then the cultural climate changed, and it wasn't a good fit for a school program and how they wanted the program to roll out. And then my son, Luke, was actually hired by the Detroit Pistons. He was the massage therapist on staff with the Detroit Pistons, full-time job for 10 years. And just recently has moved to do more stuff at the school because I'm getting older. That was our plan. That was our transition plan. But we also had a school program with them, but we had trained people who had committed to be involved and all the stuff it takes to do that, so that they were able to transition and take over. And now basketball is very different than football. Football's got 55 people on the roster. Basketball's got 20. So it takes more massage therapists to serve an NFL football team than it does a NBA basketball team. And then
and I would like to say, because my experiences with cycling is, and so you're like the Pistons. I'm like, oh, is that basketball? I don't know.
Now my son worked with a cycling team before he got in with the Pistons. And 10 years ago, the way he got in with the Pistons is that their trainer, this is a world of somebody knows somebody that knows somebody.
So like, get to know as many people as possible, really get your naming out there.
Somebody from the Pistons knew somebody from the NBA, and a new player was coming in that wanted a massage therapist, and you get the referral, and away it goes. And then they like what you do. And then there's this, that, and the other thing. And the trainer wanted to know if I had any students that would like to intern, which basically means work for free, right? And so I thought, well, this could be a good pilot program or something. So I made Luke, my son, go do that for the first season to dry run how it was going to work out. I hired him after that, and he would still be working there if he didn't want to, pivot his career. So one of the questions I get all the time is, how do you make that connection? And you know what? I don't have a really good answer for that. Um, First of all, you've got to be willing to do the work behind the scenes in order to get connected. So it's not easy to get in with the pro teams. So you usually have to start with some local, say you want to work with baseball. And so you might offer to do massage for a local league, in softball or something. Or maybe you volunteer for the local high school team, because you got to get experience.
Mhm.
That's all there is to it. You've got to get experience. Now, there's nothing special about an athlete other than they use their muscles and their movements in a certain way. And depending on the sport, they get, they're more prone to sports injuries. There's really no such thing as sports massage. It really does not exist. Now, there can be a specialization where you want to work with a population. And then it's not so much about the massage, but understanding how to work in that environment. Those environments, just like if you wanted to work in an extended care facility, that was where your passion was at. The environment is unique, not the massage. So, and with the athletes, there's no special technique or anything else, it's, there may be a size, I've worked with a lot of great big people, but I've also worked with a lot of little tiny people. You work with a jockey or a gymnast, or they're not that big, so.
Yeah, as a cyclist, working with cyclists and runners, like I'm used to working with very smaller framed people,
So, there's a lot of misconceptions out there. The biggest struggle is the schedule. Their schedules are crazy. Sometimes people will just end up working with one athlete. Now, what does happen, let's say you get in with a corporate baseball league, and or a local gymnast club. There's a lot of ways to do this. And one person really likes what they do. Well, then it's pretty much a word of mouth. You pretty much get in by word of mouth. Once you get a toe in a door, then it's pretty much word of mouth after that.
So it sounds like initially, one thing I always tell my students, pick which sport you want to kind of go into.
Yeah, I never did that. I am like the most awkward, clumsy, whatever in the world. And when we were initially approached by the Detroit Lions, I didn't want anything to do with it, because I had worked with athletes in my career. Pro wrestling. I had some semi-pro golfers, worked with, the wrestlers were fun. Worked with some.
I was just going to ask you, how was it working with wrestlers? Like,
they're crazy. And I didn't, this was the World Federation of whatever it is. But the clients I had were the local guys that were trying to break into it. And they were the ones that got beat up. It was their job to get beat up, not to win.
Yeah.
So there is a level of appreciating the environment and the sport and the hierarchy. There's a definite pecking order in these things. And if you're going to work with somebody that has a team with them, the coach, the trainer, the management, you better know your spot. You can't work contrary, even if you work with an athlete individually. You start working contrary to what their trainer is telling them, or a physical therapist or something like that, then it's a small world, and it doesn't take much for somebody. I've seen this a lot. They have worked with a professional athlete. They've had influence over that athlete, or a semi-pro or whatever, and they have not stayed in their scope of practice. They have done stuff outside of their scope of practice. And And that has put the athlete in an awkward position, because now who do they believe? Do they believe their trainer? Do they believe their coach? Or do they believe the therapist? Or the massage therapist is doing something that is actually going contrary to what the strength and conditioning coach is doing with them.
So important to work as a team.
Got to work as a team, and you need to know where you are in that pecking order. You need
Usually the bottom, unfortunately.
not okay with that, and then you earn your own respect as you fit within that structure. And that goes for working with individual athletes as well. And whether because that's what a lot of people will do, they have an athlete that they work with. And people will say, oh, these people are making so much money, they're going to pay me to do this, that, and the other thing. Well, only a few make a lot of money. Most don't. Amateur athletes don't make any money. In fact, it costs them to participate.
They usually have jobs on, to make it so they can, like, that's in the cycling world as well. Like all the athletes I work with, they had jobs. I was volunteering my time. So it sounds like that's for all the kind of these different sports. You have to volunteer your time so you can get your name in there and you can work your way up.
Or you've got to remember, there's a real issue in the massage community as a whole right now under the idea of pay. I need to be paid what I'm worth. Well, I don't know what that means, first of all. And secondly, you're only going to be able to get paid what people can pay. All right. So now you get into the higher ranks, but even, minimum pay for a football player is $750,000. Now that might seem like a lot of money, but it isn't. They have a ton of expenses that have to come out of that. They have to move. They have to keep a couple residences because most of them don't live where they play. They have external services for themselves that they might have a personal trainer that works with them or whatever, and
they're expensive.
Yeah, and most of the players in the professional leagues are in relationship. They have a family. They've got kids, and so it's
and I would even say that they have to think about retirement. They can't do this for their entire life. They have to make sure they're putting a lot of that away.
And most of the rookies, regardless of the sport, they're not there the next year, right? Or they'll travel around from one team to the other for a while trying to catch on. But for every position on a professional league, there's hundreds of people that want that spot.
Yeah.
And so the reality of it gets to be a little less exciting. And besides, you can't tell somebody who you work on or work with.
I was just going to say to my students, did you notice she did not say any names? She just said, I've been, football player I've been working with. You have to keep that quiet,
Now, the agreement I did have with some of the big name people that I worked with is that I could use their name, or if I asked them, they would do a little interview or something, because I had a bigger picture in mind, which is promoting massage as a true health type profession. And, a lot of people would, oh, if so-and-so is getting a massage, then that would be cool for me to do that too. And they were all real, I didn't work with any real jerky people. I mean, again, it's not the way you see in the media. They were young kids trying to figure out what they were doing in this big world that they had no clue about most of the time. And they were kids, and so I think one of the reasons why I kept growing in that field is that I looked like a mom. I didn't look young, you got to think about the spouses,
Mhm,
there's a lot of groupie stuff out there.
mhm.
And that really doesn't sit well with the spouse, and so they're gonna have opinions about who it's okay. It's actually it's easier for an older it's easiest for a middle-aged female to break into it than it is any other demographic.
Or maybe how about a male? Because I've noticed we've had like a huge influx of male students lately at our school.
It's hard.
Is it?
It's hard. And it's hard for the male student anyway. They have to be extraordinary, and they have to be so professional. And they
Yeah, I
have,
thought it would be easier for the male students to kind of veer towards sports massage because
it's
I
a,
do know it's hard for guys within the field.
yeah, it's harder. It is not as, there's still that mentality, that gender mentality issue that still is pervasive. And is it fair? No. My son worked into it, but he presented himself very therapeutic. He didn't, you can't be a fan and
Mhm.
work in this environment. You can't do that. They don't, these athletes, especially if they're higher up and they know, they're known and stuff, the last thing they want to do when they lay on that massage table is talk to you about football or basketball. They don't want, they just want to mess with their phone and go to sleep. And so um Luke had to really work to be just one of the guys, and that was part of the group that was taking care of these guys. But when we would bring the students in to work, whether it was with the basketball team or with the football team or the soccer team or all the different ones we had, if they had their choice, they would choose a female.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Have you noticed your school having a higher percentage of men as we have here?
It is,
We're about 50-50 now. It's very interesting.
yeah, no, I have not seen that. The demographics that just came out from the AMTA, their report was still close to 90% female.
Really. So
Uh,
just us then.
you know, and I don't want to discourage the guys.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
can work hard. Like the guys, if you work hard, you get the professionalism, you can go far.
Yes, you can. But you really do have to be at the top end of it, and you've got to really work to present yourself as a professional. And it's helping that there are more males going into other female dominated occupations, such as nursing.
Mhm.
Just like it is helping that more females are going into male dominated occupations, such as athletic training. So, it's better. It's better than it was, but honestly, the easiest entry is a middle-aged female.
So I've noticed from your post, and we were talking before, that you're really about, and my perception of you is you're really about elevating the educational field. And I personally would love to see us have more hours required of us, kind of like the other countries. Some other countries have, like more like an associate's level for massage therapy. This is my question then. Have you noticed that more teams have started I've noticed some teams would rather have someone with like a bachelor's in exercise science who also does massage. Have you noticed that they would prefer people with a higher education at all? Or is that just, I think I talked to someone, they were like college level, and the college levels wanted someone with a little bit more weight behind their education.
I haven't noticed that. And the there's been a lot of discussion about that. And vocational training, which is where massage therapy is at right now for entry level, really offers the most opportunity. It's affordable in terms of access. It's a diploma-based program, but there is room. There is room for after entry level and licensure. There's room for people to specialize. And there's also pathways to associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees, should somebody want to do that. Vocational training had sort of taken seen as a less than career opportunity, but that's not the case anymore. Vocational occupations are in huge demand. And typically what happens, and when you go up the academic scale, go up, go from a certificate or diploma program to an associate's degree program to a bachelor's degree program to a master's degree program, you move less and less, you move away from the hands-on skills or the client interaction and more into management. So I have not seen that. But what they do want is they want somebody that knows how to stay in their lane. They want somebody that knows how to, that knows enough to understand what the other professionals are talking about.
So understanding terminology,
Right. The trainer, usually in a professional sports, the massage therapist is under the athletic trainer. Actually, you're under the assistant athletic trainer. You don't necessarily interact with the medical team, nor do you interact with the coaching group. And so everything runs through the athletic trainer and into usually an assistant who is supervising the massage therapist. And what they really don't like is what I mentioned before, is somebody coming in and saying, well, I have, I have exercise physiology and I have this and I have that. And then you start to get a battle of scope of practice. And that doesn't bear well. And athletic trainers have a hard time with personal trainers, and so do strength and conditioning coaches. So if somebody wants to work at that level, if they want to do the diagnosing, if they want to develop the sport specific or the injury specific treatment plan, and they want to embed themselves in that area, they really should go and get that credential.
Yeah.
They really should go get athletic training or something like that. But I don't see it in the massage world. And increasing education does not necessarily, at entry level, does not necessarily open doors. Now, that being said, I really am a proponent of elevating education. I think the entry-level education we have right now is not very good. I think it is too, it's not focusing enough on foundational skills, which are the foundation for everything. And it's too divided up into modalities. And so a student doesn't ever get really good at therapeutic massage, so they'll take their Swedish class, and then they take a deep tissue class, and then they might sprinkle in a Thai class, and then they might have a reflexology class thrown in there, and they never get a chance to be good at any of it. And so I think entry-level education is too cluttered, and that there isn't enough focus on the foundational skills of gliding and kneading and joint movement and body mechanics for the massage therapist, and critical thinking skills, and knowing first when not to, and then knowing how to adapt, learning then how to adapt. to an athlete that might have denser tissue, or somebody who has a local injury or something. How do I adapt to that? Too often they move away from the foundational stuff and they try to get into things that are fix-it mode, and that really isn't in our scope.
Mhm.
So if somebody wants to fix it, then you need to go get a PT degree or that's the beauty is that we don't have all the constraints that go with that,
Yeah.
nor do we have to get a master's and bachelor's degree or
Mhm.
a bachelor's, master's, and PhD.
Yeah, I was gonna say now it's higher. Now it's a lot higher.
So what's more important is that you know how to be part of a team and you're good at the general massage. That's what's most important right there. And that you're not a fan. You cannot be a fan.
Okay, so last question, save the best for last. Students want to know, like, what pay can they expect? Like, once they do their volunteer work, once they get their name out there. Yeah, once they get paid nothing. After you get paid nothing, what do you get paid?
It depends. It really does depend. When Luke was full-time massage therapist at the Detroit Pistons, and full-time meant whatever needed to be done because it was a salary. And he was making $40,000 a year with benefits. I'm sure people think should be more than that. But when you start to look at pay scale structure based in the pecking order, the hierarchy, there is a tier structure that goes in with that. So that's about $20, $25 an hour with the benefits. Now, if you're working with an individual athlete, so I traveled to their homes a lot, right? And so they had to pay me a premium for doing that. So, my fees have changed as I have, back in 1985, the fee structure is different than it is now. And it's not really like massage therapists are earning more. It has just gone up as cost of living.
Yeah.
Has gone up. So what was $25 or $30 back in 1985 is probably 65 or 70 now for you to stay in the same economic tier kind of thing. So I had my hourly fee, whatever that is. And right now it is 70. And for me, I own a franchise. And so our fee structure there is a little bit different. But for me, and I don't see a lot of people anymore, because it's a lot. You do that for 25 years. There's a lot to it. You see 8 linemen in a day, right?
4 linemen would be a lot for me. Jeez.
You got to learn to work efficiently.
Yeah.
You got, kind of stuff. And so I took whatever my hourly rate was, and most of the characters wanted longer than the 50-minute hour. They wanted the more like a 90-minute.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time they are, if they're making money being an athlete, most of the time they will pay a premium for you to go to them. They're not going to come to you. So they'll pay a premium for that, but that also means that you're working bizarro hours. And so I would take whatever my rate was. By the time I get in there, get set up, the whole thing, it's 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I would charge them the hourly rate for 2 hours plus a premium for the travel. So I've got an eyesight problem. I've got glaucoma, but the last time I did that 3 years ago, where I was traveling, going to other people's homes, It was about $180, $190 for that. But you got to understand that's 3 hours of a commitment
It
right there.
is. It is. Because whenever I travel, I tell people my rates. I'm like, I could do 2 people, for that time.
Oh, it's, but if that's what you want to do and you would rather do the travel and the setup and the tear down and all that kind of stuff, and you would want to do that instead of, more volume, but it really ends up being about the same income base. Now, I don't know, what are you teaching that is, and you make more as an experienced therapist than you do at entry level, obviously. The going rate where we are at for an hourly rate is between 60 and 70. I don't know what you're teaching down there.
I mean, Chicago is a little bit more expensive to live here. So
Yeah.
we're a little bit more than that. We're probably like 60 to 80 here. Maybe we're creeping into the 90. You definitely know a lot of people that charge 100.
Yeah, but they're not beginners.
No, they're not beginners.
Right, beginners.
A lot of my beginners will tend to go to the franchises.
And I think that's an excellent place for them. And again, as a franchise owner, don't discount the importance of that opportunity.
And especially if your franchise owner is a massage therapist, because I always tell my therapists, the students, like, if you go to someone who's a massage therapist and you're working for them, it's a completely different experience to someone who knows nothing about the field.
Well, and it is some of the experiences with the franchises over the past 5-6 years that, if somebody's giving you bad rap about franchises and they haven't had any new experience within the last 3, 4, 5 years, don't listen to them, because that employment model, that business model, career model, whatever you want, that has evolved just like everything else has evolved. In fact, with this AMTA report I talked to you about, people who worked in the franchises made the most money.
Oh, interesting. Not at home people? I thought it was like, interesting.
They made the most money. But that doesn't
People I know who are in a franchise, they're very happy.
Yeah,
Therapists I know.
A lot of times what happens with self-employed is they report their business gross, not what they paid income tax on, which is your business net. And you can't, when you're working as an employee, you're getting paid like if you had paid all your expenses and everything.
Yeah.
So it's hard to compare those two. And you got to remember, if the rate, if you can charge whatever you want, but if either you don't deliver enough value, and you're not flexible enough or whatever, people aren't going to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to undercharge either.
Yeah.
So I think tipping, franchises, that's a very slick business model, and they do their due diligence when they are looking at what a demographic or a market can bear. And so their pricing is about right.
Mm-hmm.
As far as a market.
Mm-hmm.
And they do adjust to, like you said, it's more expensive in Chicago. So, it really isn't anymore. You're not making more money working with an athlete than if you were.
Do they come more often? Are you finding they're once a weekers? Or
most of my clients were once a week. Yeah, and I would try to get them down to every other week. That was just because I've always been self-employed. Here I'm talking about employment, which is a great opportunity. But there was no employment when I came up. Employment's only been a career option really for the last 10 years. It's kind of really the new kid on the block, and a lot of people haven't lived it, so they don't really understand it. Luke was employed by the Pistons. He got a salary and the W-2, and the whole thing. And I think more teams are looking at that because they want to have some continuity. They want to have some networking within the system. And there is problems when an athlete goes out of the system because they don't know an individual massage therapist working with an athlete is not coordinating with the
Mhm.
coaching team or anything like that. So massage is becoming very acceptable. It's wanted. People want massage therapy, including in the athletic world. Uh, but there's got to be a level of coordination that goes on with it. So that's changing too. The massage therapists that I've trained that segued into the Detroit Lions right now are paid per client. They go to the facility. They are not employed, and they get $100 an hour that they're working. That's what they are paying them. So usually they go in, they'll see three or four, or five, and then they leave. So they're talking about hiring massage therapists as opposed to having that kind of a
Setup.
with them. Yeah. So just because somebody's making a lot of money doesn't mean that they're just blowing it either. They've, like you said, they got to prepare for retirement. They gotta, they're not gonna, I mean, I've had clients that have played 20 years. I have. But they didn't come out of it unscathed either.
Mhm.
All right. They're all going to need a hip replacement or something like that as time goes on. So I feel a little bit like I talked like a downer on all of it.
It's realistic expectations.
And I think that is so important. In my mind, my audience are students right now, and massage therapy, boy, it's never been better to be a massage therapist right now. The market is open. The science backs us up. It's there. We're vocationally trained, which means it's a realistic entry level. There are pathways to advance if you want to do that. I mean, it's, specialize or move towards degrees or whatever you want to do. It's just a ripe, wonderful pathway right now, but it's still messy, and there's still confusion, and a lot of people don't tell the truth.
About money or
and I lived that, and my son Luke lived it for a total of 30 years of what it's like for real to be on the inside and not just have a client on the outside, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want students going into this wonderful career pathway disillusioned because they didn't necessarily get accurate information. And I've raised 3 kids as a single parent, as a massage therapist back in the day when it wasn't easy.
Mm.
And
that's what I love about franchises, because massage used to be a field where your husband was getting you insurance,
Right. And, and the newer generation, those that are under 30, they really are about work-life balance. They don't want to work like I did. They don't want to start a massage at 5:30 in the morning, do 2, wait for a training meeting, have 3 people come in at lunch, then start again at 9 o'clock at night. They don't want to do that. Right. And I don't know, in retrospect, I don't know if I would want to do that. I did, and it was good for me. And I don't know that others are going to get that same richness of an experience that I had, bumbling my way through.
Well, that's the reason I don't want to be a soigneur anymore, because it was exhausting. First one up, last one to bed. I'm like doing massages till midnights, But I will say, with learning sports massage, as you said, that's you don't just have to learn this and like get into a team. I use this information for my construction workers,
absolutely,
my police officers, firefighters. Like you don't have to learn these techniques and just use them on football players.
So in fact, that's why I say there is no sports massage technique. There is adapting to the external issues of an athlete and understanding that. And like somebody else say, oh, there's prenatal massage, which I don't know what that is either. It's adapting to somebody who is in various stages of pregnancy. Mm-hmm. But I work, sometimes they'll say, oh, sideline is prenatal massage. Sideline is.
Love it in sports.
It's major. All my clients are sideline. It's easier on me. My body mechanics and ergonomics are better when the client is sideline.
Any hip issues, it's amazing.
So like I say, an area of specialization is not so much about the method. It's to take the foundational methods and adapt them to the person that's on the table and what their uniquenesses are. And with athletes, a lot of it is they just need to recover. They don't need to be fixed, and there's somebody else that can do that. They want that full, firm, not pokey, not rippy, not stretching them and throwing them all over the place. And they want a good, firm massage where they don't necessarily have to interact with you because they've already talked about their ankle with the trainer and everybody else. And they want to play with their phone or they want to go to sleep. That's what they want. And if you're not okay with that, then for the long haul, you're not going to be happy. If your perception is something different about what it's going to be like, and you're going to rub shoulders with everybody and all of that. I mean, I could throw out some names between Luke and I that would be extremely impressive. But they're just people.
Yeah. They're just people. I mean, I love my weekend warriors. Like that's where I am. And I love my weekend warriors. And, they want to talk about their ankle because I'm sometimes the only person that they're going to.
Yes. That does happen with the weekend warriors. And in that world, you've got to know enough about how to refer.
Yeah.
And when you can and when you can't. And because there can be injuries that are sneaky and don't necessarily, they'll act like something else. And so there is an uptick of knowledge, absolutely, to be able to work with this environment, because you're going to get more impact trauma or more movement related injury with somebody who is in or repetitive injury, like a golfer who moves the same way all the time, than you would. But not, you can work on a farmer and they're doing the same.
Very physically active and
and
injuries and
clients over the years have been farmers, let me tell you. So
in Michigan, I can definitely see that. Well, I totally took us over our time. I am so sorry, but thank you.
I'm
so much.
Chance and access me again. I am more than happy. I love sharing with students. They're the next generation. That's where my passion is at. They're the ones that are going to take it the next step. And
that's why I love teaching. I love,
students are important.
So if you guys have any more questions and you want me to do another interview,
just let me know.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking.
Okay. Bye.
If you got it off.